My brothers and sisters, we are living through times that leave even the most faithful among us questioning what lies ahead. Recent events within the Catholic Church, combined with unprecedented global upheaval, have left many wondering if we are witnessing the fulfillment of ancient prophecies. But for those who have studied the documented apparitions at Our Lady of Fatima, these troubling patterns were not only foretold over a century ago, they were described with startling precision. Today, we examine the authentic 1944 letter written by Sister Lucia dos Santos, the sole surviving visionary of Fatima, currently housed in the Vatican secret archives. This document contains warnings that many biblical scholars and Catholic theologians believe are unfolding before our very eyes. I ask you to stay with me through this entire examination, because what this Vatican-authenticated document reveals about our current moment requires the mature discernment and spiritual wisdom that comes with decades of faith and life experience. This is not sensationalism. This is documented history intersecting with contemporary reality, docked properly. Understand this prophecy, we must first establish the comprehensive historical foundation upon which it rests. The story of Fatima is not folklore or legend. It is meticulously documented history that has withstood over a century of scholarly scrutiny. On May 13, 1917, in the small Portuguese village of Fatima, 3 shepherd children, Lucia dos Santos, age 10, and her younger cousins Jacinta and Francisco Marto, ages 7 and 9, reported a supernatural apparition of a beautiful woman who identified herself as the Virgin Mary. Now, before we continue, let me emphasize the extraordinary credibility of this account. These were not sophisticated urban children seeking attention. They were simple shepherd children from a remote agricultural village, with limited education and no exposure to theological complexities. The apparitions continued monthly through October 13, 1917, each time drawing larger crowds as word spread throughout Portugal. The final apparition, witnessed by an estimated 70,000 people, included the famous miracle of the sun, an unexplained solar phenomenon observed and documented by believers and skeptics alike, including secular newspaper reporters. But here's what makes this historically significant. The Catholic Church, known for its rigorous investigation process, spent 13 years examining every aspect of these claims. Teams of theologians, medical doctors, psychologists, and investigators interviewed hundreds of witnesses, examined the children's backgrounds, and scrutinized every detail. Only in 1930 did Bishop José de Silva officially declare the apparitions worthy of belief and authorize public devotion to Our Lady of Fatima. This was not a hasty decision, but the result of exhaustive academic and theological review. During the July 13, 1917 apparition, the Virgin Mary revealed what would become known as the 3 secrets of Fatima to the children. The first 2 secrets were transcribed by Sister Lucia in her memoirs, written at the request of her bishop in 1941. The first secret contained a terrifying vision of hell, described in vivid detail that no 10-year-old child could have imagined without divine revelation. The second secret predicted World War II and warned of Russia spreading its errors throughout the world if humanity did not heed the call for conversion and penance. However, the third and most enigmatic secret remained sealed for decades. Sister Lucia, who had become a Carmelite nun, was explicitly forbidden by the Virgin Mary from revealing this final prophecy until a later time. The Virgin had instructed that it should not be opened before 1960, or upon Sister Lucia's death, whichever came first. But in September 1943, as World War II raged across Europe, Bishop José de Silva made an urgent visit to Sister Lucia, who was gravely ill with influenza and pleurisy. Fearing she might die and take the secret with her, he implored her to commit the third secret to writing. What followed was perhaps one of the most profound spiritual crisis in modern Catholic history. Sister Lucia found herself torn between absolute obedience to her religious superiors, a fundamental vow of her Carmelite calling, and unwavering faithfulness to the explicit instructions of the Mother of God. For months, this internal conflict tormented her. As a Carmelite nun, her vow of obedience required her to treat her superiors' commands as if they came from God Himself. Yet, how could she disobey the Queen of Heaven, who had appeared to her with such clarity and authority? This spiritual paralysis continued until January 1944, when divine intervention resolved her dilemma. The Virgin Mary appeared to Sister Lucia once more, providing the solution with gentle but clear instruction. Write what they are asking you to write, but not what has been shown to you about its deeper meaning. With this heavenly permission, Sister Lucia's torment ended. On January 3, 1944, she entered her cell, took up her pen, and wrote down the third secret. She sealed the letter and presented it to Bishop Silva in June of that year. The bishop, understanding the gravity of what he possessed, ensured the document was transferred to Rome in 1957, where it remained in the Vatican's secret archives, unread by the public for nearly half a century. Now, my brothers and sisters, we approach the most sacred part of our examination. Let me share with you the exact words from Sister Lucia's authenticated letter, as revealed by the Vatican's Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith in the Jubilee year 2000. But first, I want you to understand the significance of what you're about to hear. These are not the words of a novelist or a dramatist. These are the carefully transcribed visions of a simple Portuguese nun, writing under divine instruction and ecclesiastical obedience. Sister Lucia began her letter with a solemn invocation. Through His Excellency, the Bishop of Leiria, your most holy mother and mine, I am compelled to write this in obedience to you, my God. Notice the weight of those words, compelled and in obedience. This was not a casual revelation, but a sacred duty she felt bound to fulfill. She continued, on the left side of Our Lady, somewhat above, we beheld an angel with a blazing sword in his left hand. The image is both majestic and terrifying. An angel of judgment wielding divine justice. The sword flashed and released flames as if it could light the entire planet on fire. Consider the apocalyptic imagery here. This is not mere symbolism, but a vision of cosmic judgment hanging over humanity. But then comes a moment of divine mercy. The intense light that Our Lady cast out from her right palm, however, extinguished the flames. Even in the midst of judgment, maternal intercession provides protection. The angel spoke out in a commanding voice, pointing to the ground with his right hand, and proclaimed, penance, penance, penance. That threefold call, penance, 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 echoes throughout salvation history. From Jonah's call to Nineveh, to John the Baptist's cry in the wilderness, to Christ's own words, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. But the vision continues, and what Sister Lucia describes next has profound implications for our understanding of church history and current events. After this, we saw a dazzling light representing God, and within it, resembling a reflection. In a mirror, a bishop clad in white. We thought it was the Holy Father. The identification is crucial here. We thought it was the Holy Father. This figure represents not just any religious leader, but the Vicar of Christ himself, the successor of St. Peter. On top of a rocky mountain, which was climbed by other bishops, priests, and men and women of religious faith, stood a rough wooden cross. The mountain represents the difficult ascent of faith, while the cross symbolizes the ultimate sacrifice. That defines Christianity. A huge city half in ruins was traversed by the Pope before he reached the peak. This image of urban devastation, whether physical, moral, or spiritual, has resonated with countless interpreters over the decades. He paused to pray for the souls of the deceased resting along his walk. He quavered with agony and grief. The papal figure becomes a suffering servant, bearing the weight of humanity's pain and loss. And then comes the most disturbing element of the entire vision. At the peak of the hill, he bowed down before the cross, but a squad of soldiers opened fire on him, killing him instantly. Bishops, priests, men and women of religion, and ordinary citizens were all killed one by one. This is not merely the martyrdom of a single leader, but a systematic persecution of the faithful across all levels of society. The vision concludes with a profound theological image. Both angels had crystal bowls in their hands. They stood beneath the cross's two arms. They gathered the martyr's blood and sprinkled it on the souls that were traveling to God. This final scene transforms human suffering into divine offering. The martyr's blood becomes a sanctifying agent, echoing the salvific power of Christ's own sacrifice on Calvary. Now, it's crucial to understand the Vatican's official interpretation, published by the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith under Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, later Pope Benedict XVI. The Church emphasizes that this vision is symbolic in character, rather than a literal prediction of specific future events. Cardinal Ratzinger stated, "The vision does not portray an immutable and inevitable future, but serves as a warning, prompting people to take decisive action." This interpretation is theologically sound because it preserves human freedom and divine mercy while acknowledging the prophetic warning inherent in the vision. But as we examine our current world through the lens of Sister Lucia's vision, the parallels are not only undeniable, they are multiplying. Let me present you with 4 specific connections that demand our careful consideration. First connection: the systematic persecution of Christians worldwide. According to the 2024 World Watch List published by Open Doors USA, approximately 365 million Christians currently face high levels of persecution worldwide. That represents 1 in 7 Christians globally, a staggering increase from previous decades. But the numbers only tell part of the story. In China, the Communist Party has demolished thousands of churches and imprisoned countless pastors under its Sinicization of Christianity campaign. In North Korea, possession of a Bible can result in execution or decades in political prison camps. In the Middle East, ancient Christian communities that survived 1,400 years of Islamic rule have been decimated in just the past 2 decades. Iraq's Christian population has plummeted from 1.5 million in 2003 to fewer than 200,000 today. In Nigeria, Fulani militants have killed more Christians in recent years than ISIS did at the height of its power. The Plateau State alone has seen over 300 Christian villages completely destroyed. These are not isolated incidents, but part of a global pattern that mirrors Sister Lucia's vision of widespread martyrdom. Second connection: the image of a huge city half in ruins. While some have interpreted this literally as physical destruction, many Catholic theologians see this as a prophetic image of institutional crisis. And indeed, we are witnessing unprecedented challenges to the institutional integrity of the Catholic Church. The 2018 Pennsylvania grand jury report revealed systematic abuse by over 300 priests affecting more than 1,000 children. This was followed by similar revelations in Australia, Ireland, Chile, Germany, and dozens of other countries. But the crisis extends beyond abuse scandals. The Vatican bank scandals, including the arrest of Cardinal Angelo Becciu and the ongoing investigation into 350 million euros in questionable real estate investments, have shaken confidence in church governance. Doctrinally, the Church faces unprecedented internal divisions. The dubia submitted by 4 cardinals regarding Pope Francis's teachings on marriage and communion represent the most public challenge to papal authority in modern history. In Germany, the synodal way has produced resolutions that directly contradict 2,000 years of Catholic teaching on priesthood, sexuality, and authority. Some bishops have threatened schism if Rome intervenes. These crises create exactly the atmosphere Sister Lucia described, an institution that appears half in ruins, from internal strife and external scandal. Third connection, the prophetic role of the Pope in current events. Pope Francis himself has repeatedly referenced themes that align remarkably closely with the third secret of Fatima. His words often echo the very warnings Sister Lucia received. Following the November 2015 Paris attacks, Pope Francis made a chilling observation. It seems as though World War III has started, breaking out in little dispersed pieces. This fragmented global conflict matches the vision's imagery of widespread violence affecting multiple regions simultaneously. In January 2023, addressing the diplomatic corps, the Pope warned of escalating disputes that appeared to be provoking a prospect of another worldwide war. He specifically mentioned the conflict in Ukraine, tensions in the Middle East, and rising authoritarianism worldwide. But perhaps most significantly, Pope Francis has repeatedly echoed the angel's threefold call from Sister Lucia's vision. In his 2015 encyclical Laudato Si, he wrote, "We need to change, we need conversion, we need penance." During his 2021 visit to Iraq, the first papal visit to that war-torn nation, he stood among the ruins of ancient Christian churches and called for conversion of heart and penance for past failures. The visual parallel to Sister Lucia's vision of a pope praying for the souls of the deceased among ruins was striking. Fourth connection, the acceleration of prophetic timeframes. What makes these connections particularly compelling is their accelerating pace. Cardinal Ratzinger, before becoming Pope Benedict XVI, noted that the vision was not meant to portray an immutable future, but to serve as a warning. Yet the convergence of events matching the vision's elements has intensified dramatically in recent years. The COVID-19 pandemic disrupted global religious practice in ways unprecedented since the Protestant Reformation. Churches were closed for months, the faithful were separated from the sacraments, and religious liberty faced challenges that would have been unthinkable just decades ago. In some countries, churches remained closed while bars and entertainment venues reopened. The economic crisis following the pandemic has forced thousands of parishes to close permanently. In the United States alone, over 3,000 Catholic parishes have closed or merged since 2000, with the pace accelerating significantly after 2020. Meanwhile, artificial intelligence and digital surveillance create new possibilities for the kind of systematic persecution Sister Lucia witnessed in her vision. In China, facial recognition technology now tracks churchgoers and monitors religious activities with unprecedented precision. The social credit system can restrict travel, employment, and education for those deemed problematic, including Christians who refuse to join state-controlled churches. This technological persecution represents a new form of martyrdom that doesn't require physical death but can destroy lives just as effectively. But perhaps most sobering of all is the generational shift in Western Christianity. Recent studies show that practicing Catholics in Europe and North America have declined by 40% in just the past 2 decades. In Ireland, once one of the most Catholic nations on earth, weekly mass attendance has fallen from 91% in 1973 to just 35% today. Similar declines are documented across Western Europe and increasingly in the Americas. This demographic collapse of practicing Christianity in its historic heartlands creates exactly the conditions Sister Lucia foresaw: a remnant church facing overwhelming opposition from a secularized world. The precision of these parallels is what makes the third secret of Fatima so compelling to study in our current historical moment. Now, after examining all this evidence, I understand if your heart is racing. But I want you to take a deep breath. God did not give us prophecy to cause panic, but to prepare us. The very fact that the Virgin Mary intervened in Sister Lucia's vision, extinguishing the flames with light from her right palm, shows us that divine mercy can overcome even the most dire circumstances. So what is the practical application for your life today? First, embrace the call to penance, penance, penance. This doesn't mean self-flagellation or extreme asceticism. It means sincere repentance, turning away from sin, and drawing closer to God through prayer and the sacraments. Second, Our Lady of Fatima specifically requested the daily recitation of the Rosary for world peace. If you're not already praying the Rosary daily, this is perhaps the most direct response you can make to this prophecy. Third, remember Sister Lucia's own words before her death in 2005. She confirmed that my Immaculate Heart will ultimately prevail. Russia will be dedicated to me by the Holy Father. She will undergo spiritual transformation, and the world will enter a time of peace. This is not a prophecy of doom, but of ultimate hope. Yes, we may be witnessing challenging times, but the promise is clear. The Immaculate Heart of Mary will triumph. The question is not if this will happen, but how prepared we will be when it does. Are you ready to answer the call to penance and prayer? Are you prepared to be among those who help bring about the triumph that was promised? I want to hear from you in the comments below. What connections do you see between the third secret of Fatima and current world events? What other patterns have you noticed? Your insights help all of us better understand these prophetic times. And if this analysis has been helpful to you, please like this video and subscribe to Watchmen of Truth, where we examine ancient texts and modern events with the academic rigor and spiritual discernment they deserve. Until next time, may God bless you and keep you in His peace.